Hey everyone, welcome back to Free the Money. I have a very special guest for you guys today. I'm going to be joined by Rob Cunningham, who is the host of The Cool Show. In today's conversation, I'm going to cover various topics. I'm going to ask Rob particularly about the Federal Reserve, since he is a historian. He has so much knowledge on the Federal Reserve. We're going to dive into the Epstein files, Bitcoin, XRP, and so much more. Let's get into the episode. Hi, Rob. Welcome to the show. I am so grateful to have you. You are a truth seeker, a historian, a man of God, and such a prominent voice in the XRP community. It is really an honor to have you on my show today. I'm so grateful that we connected last year at XRP Vegas. It's not often that I'm able to speak with people who have such a great perspective and really know the history of America so well. So welcome to the show, Rob.
Bree, I am honored to be here with you. It was a pleasure. As the young kids like to say, it's been a minute, since May of 2025. But thank you for graciously inviting me on.
So you often talk about how money is more than just a currency and how it's really a moral measurement. And this really raises the question that many Americans today really struggle with understanding about the Federal Reserve. You know, people think oftentimes that the Federal Reserve is actually federal government run, and really it isn't. Could you talk to me today about what the Federal Reserve is, who runs the Federal Reserve, and really what they are doing to the American people?
Of course, happy to. Well, the Federal Reserve is a cartel of banks, an international, basically, we've all heard the term recently, NGO, a non-governmental organization. It's privately owned. It is not federal, as they like to say, any more than Federal Express is part of the federal government. It's a name they gave it back in the day when they were designing it in 1910 in Jekyll Island with 8 bankers that represented about 25% of the world's wealth. They went to a secret meeting and they knew they had to sell this legislation to the American public, so they needed a name that sounded good. And federal sounded like it was part of the government, and reserve made it sound like, maybe they must have gold in the vaults and money and stuff, and they were neither. They weren't federal nor reserves, but they're owned by and founded by the Rothschild family, by the Warburg family, the JP Morgan, congressmen that were elected back in the day, and they came together to create what is in essence and has always been a control system. And they created an entity where the bankers got to regulate the bankers. They basically run the monetary system since 1913 in the United States, and then America became such a vibrant, strong, free country, and the horsepower, if you will, of the today we're 25% of the world's gross domestic product, but we're only about 3% of the people. So
Wow.
350 million people represents 25% of the GDP. After World War II, they decided to make the Federal Reserve and the US dollar the world reserve currency. So they expanded it from a US only thing to now they get to issue their counterfeit debt notes around the world, and anyone that agrees to use this Federal Reserve System debt note are directly or indirectly under the control of this entity that's not federal, it's not reserve, it's not American. It's it's a globalism control system is what money has become. And it's not even money, it's debt. If you look at your dollars, it says Federal Reserve debt note. A treasury says United States dollar. If it's issued by the treasury and is backed by gold, then
Mhm.
that piece of paper represents actual physical weight in gold or silver per the Coinage Act in the United States, right? But if the Federal Reserve creates ink on paper by hitting a button on their keyboard and 5 trillion new dollars, Bree, you'll find in this movie that's coming up on February 19th called Money Disrupted. The star is G. Edward Griffin, who wrote the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. And in the book, you will find that uh, over 40% of all the money in the world, all the dollars that have ever been created in the world have been created since 2020.
Wow.
That's how much pumping, that's how much quantitative easing and just
Mhm.
money debasement they've done to keep the scam going, to keep it seem like the economy's healthy, pouring money around the world, propping up this world reserve currency,
Mhm.
completely disconnected from the actual economic activity that may or may not be happening in all these countries.
Wow.
Because without that fuel source known as dollars, economies kind of flatline. So the Federal Reserve, we can go back as far as caveman days. We can go back to the Roman Empire. We can go back to the money changer tables in the temple 2,000 years ago. And you can look at, money changers. You can look at the basic premise of Christian theology is that you cannot serve two masters.
Mhm.
You're either going to serve the one that created the whole joint or the ones who claim to be in charge of the joint. Okay. And so the monetary system, money changers, debt, debt slavery, rules and regulations, buying people, having people chase, wealth and fame and status and houses and cars and all the things that they do. You can idolize all of those things, believing that that's going to make you happy, or you can really try to find your purpose and why you're here.
Mhm.
And money is the methodology oftentimes used in order to control people, to divide and conquer, to create the military industrial complex or the
Mhm.
media industrial complex or the medical industrial complex or you name it. Okay. If you understand that money as a design is supposed to be a trust system, that means it's just a common denominator between two people. So the highest law in the world is mutual consent. If I say, you know, I'll cut your grass for $50 and you say deal and we shake hands and I cut your grass and you get, I don't need a regulator. I don't need a homeowners
Mhm.
association. I don't need the governor to pass a law. I mean, it ought to just be you and I say yes. We're not hurting anybody. It's common law. We have a mutual agreement. And then I don't need another lawnmower and I don't want you to pay me in lawnmower and you don't want any more sod because your grass is full. So that medium of exchange, that common trust system is $50, 2 20s and a 10. It's some form of it's a store of value, it's a unit of account, and it's a medium of exchange. And you have to trust that you can get the equivalent $50 from me, um, or I get $50 from you. You get a great manicured lawn and I get $50 and I can go to the barber shop and get my hair cut, or I can
Mhm.
go to the grocery store, I can go to dinner. But everybody universally trusts that medium of exchange.
Yes.
Okay. If the trust system is perverted and it's not based on honest weights and measures, an ounce doesn't equal an ounce doesn't equal an ounce, or an
Mhm.
ounce for you, but for me, it's 3/4 of an ounce,
Yes.
and there's cheating and there's imbalancing, then one of the greatest moral hazards in the world is to sell people that there's this trust system called money and then pervert it, dilute it, shave the edges off the coins. Say it's a silver coin when it's all nickel and copper and it's painted silver on the outside, but you call it a silver piece. Okay. So the lying and the deception and the distortion and the weaponization of money to use it to either enslave people, bribe people, entice people, uh, drown them in debt, a mortgage, a lifetime of debt on a mortgage, where you buy in your
Mhm.
future and then you're committing yourself to labor because now you have to follow the rules for 30 years to keep your employment to pay out that 30 years of debt that you borrowed from the future. So then you go, well, I can't do that. I got a job. Well, what if you're called to go over there, but you can't because you got a job? So now you're serving the debt. And we're taught that that's okay. And I'm not against houses. I'm just using that as an
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
So since the time of turning over the money changer tables and Jesus not liking what he saw, people getting 10 cents on the dollar in a shekel exchange during Holy Week, and the money changers setting up business in his father's house in the temple, and the politicians letting them do it, and Jesus seeing that this RICO business model, the religious people, which Jesus said, stay away from religion. He was asked one time about it. He said, don't do it. Okay,
Right.
because faith and religion are two different things, right? So
Absolutely.
the religious folks let the money changers come in and set up shop, and all these people from 70, 80 countries around the world were showing up for Holy Week, bringing all their finest valuables and getting 10 cents on the dollar for the shekel, because the shekel was the only currency you could use in Jerusalem during Holy Week. So you had to do an exchange if you wanted to go and eat dinner and get something to drink or shop or do whatever you wanted to do. That was the currency of the town. So they were getting screwed in the church by the money changers with the permission of the politicians. So when Jesus flips over the money changer table, he doesn't do it because he hates business, or he hates money, he hates commerce, he hates culture, he hates lies and deception and
Mhm.
thievery and dishonesty and misrepresenting the trust system for being something that it's not.
Mhm.
And the bankers and the politicians and the money changers all working together. So he flips over the money changer tables, and 5 days later, they hang him on a tree.
Mhm.
So the point being is, if money is not used as it's intended as a trust system, it enslaves us and it controls us. Abraham Lincoln introduced this thing called the greenback after the Civil War because he needed to pay his troops, and they shot him in the Ford Theater for greenbacks. And they put a bullet in John F. Kennedy's head because of the silverback dollars, the Executive Order 1110. You don't mess with the money system because that's how they control the world. The Federal Reserve is a non-governmental organization, accountable to no one, hasn't been audited. They have no reserves. They issue debt. If anyone will pull out a dollar bill or 5 or 10 or $20 bill, you'll see it says Federal Reserve Note.
Mhm.
A note is a debt instrument, is an IOU. It is an obligation. When someone issues a note, that means you owe it back to the issuer.
Quick commercial break. I just want to talk to you about I Trust Capital. So, with inflation, taxes, and market uncertainty, you don't have to let these things control your future. That's why I use I Trust Capital. I Trust Capital lets you invest in crypto, silver, and gold all inside a tax advantage IRA. I've been using I Trust Capital since 2021. It's like a traditional IRA, but upgraded. I'm able to invest in assets like Bitcoin and XRP while still getting the same tax benefits you'd expect from a traditional IRA. There are no monthly fees. The platform is super simple. And the best part is, this is such a powerful way to diversify your retirement outside of just stocks and bonds. So you're able to roll over your existing IRA or you can start a new one. And if you sign up down below with this link, you're able to actually get a $100 funding bonus. So take charge of your financial future with iTrust Capital. So, why do you think they call it federal? Do you think this is really to confuse the American people into thinking
Yes.
that the government is responsible for this? And if you
Yes.
can
Yes.
break down a little bit more the relationship between the Federal Reserve and the Treasury, just how that
Sure.
entire process works.
Sure. So what happened in 1910, there was a group of like 6 or 8 of the most wealthiest men in the world. They represented about 25%. They're benefactors, if you will, the
Mhm.
Rockefeller family, the JP Morgan family, um, 6 or 7 folks that are outlined in the book, Creature from Jekyll Island. They got together very secretively. They traveled first names only, told no one where they were going. They were instructed not to speak to one another. They didn't want it to leak. They didn't want the media to know. They got on trains and they went down to Jekyll Island, Georgia, and they met there and they planned the new monetary system. And the Warburg family was there. Senator Aldridge was there, who was the liaison in the government. And they hatched a plan to create this monetary system among, again, the Rothschilds, the people from all over the world, global interest wanted to take it over, if you will, have control over the economy of the world's most powerful nation, which
Mhm.
was America. I mean, before 1913, we had so much money, we had no income tax. They had to have special committees, as President Trump talked about, figuring out how to give away all the wealth. They made so
Wow.
much money and they never had an income tax. We went 147 years or something before we ever had an income tax. We didn't need one, but along with the Federal Reserve comes the income tax and the IRS
Hmm.
and the 16th Amendment. Okay.
Enslavement programs.
Right. So what happens is after they hatch their scheme, they spend time together. They take a vow of silence. Again, they get back on the trains. They go back. and they start doing their magic work. They start doing their soliciting. They start trying to sell it. They have strong opposition. They have people that don't want to have anything to do with it, all the way back to the founding fathers' principle of not having a central anything, right? Being
Yeah.
decentralized as a sovereign nation. Decentralization then was just as important as it is in the crypto world today,
Yes.
decentralization. So, um, by hook and by crook, by what politicians do, by manipulation, bribery, blackmail, sinking a boat called the Titanic,
Titanic.
do if for your audience that doesn't know, there were the three most powerful men in the world were invited to go on the Grand Titanic that was owned by the Morgans, J.P. Morgan, and he was supposed to go as well. It was the grandest, most unbelievable magisterial boat in the world, unsinkable. At the very last second, Mr. JP Morgan just couldn't make the trip. But the three men that were the most powerful, wealthy, and strongest politically in opposition to the Federal Reserve just happened to be on that boat when it sunk.
And that's probably just
Darn
a coincidence, right?
Just absolutely, it was a coincidence. It had to have been because it couldn't have been anything else. Um, and so the very next year, oh, guess what day the Titanic sank?
What day?
April 15th.
Interesting.
Interesting. So the very next year, December the 23rd in the evening, our fine Northeastern liberal professor, Woodrow Wilson, signed the Federal Reserve Act
Mhm.
into law. While most of Congress had gone home, they had long trips. Back then, if you're going to go home and see your family and you're a congressman from Florida or somewhere, you got a long horse and buggy ride or a
Mhm.
long train ride. It's a trip. So they had enough of a quorum. They passed a bill in 1913, and this Federal Reserve becomes alive. It's privately owned cartel.
Mhm.
Mr. G. Edward Griffin describes it as a cartel. It
Yeah.
is not constitutional. It is not sovereign. It's a non-governmental organization
Mhm.
with supra or extra constitutional powers above and beyond our Constitution. Hasn't been audited, and the President of the United States, you've had Alan Greenspan say it, we've had Jerome Powell say it. They're a completely independent agency answerable to no one.
Wow,
How
and
do you have
more power than the president.
more power than anybody in the world except the ones
Yeah.
that own the bank?
What are the major banks that are behind the Federal Reserve right now? Just so
Well,
people
they're
really
they're
understand.
what they did is they broke, the Federal Reserve System up into, I believe, 12 districts across the United States. So there's
Mhm.
the Atlanta Fed and the Denver Fed and the Dallas Fed, and so
I
they
wrote
have
this
all these
down.
different areas to make it look like, it's decentralized and we're taking votes, and you have the Federal Reserve board members that report to the board chairman, and
Mhm.
it's all smoke and mirrors, okay? It's all just to make it look like it wasn't just the king's castle in Westminster. They distributed it with Federal Reserve systems, and so it, um, it is owned by the 10-member banks. You got JP Morgan Chase, you've got, um, Mellon Bank, you've got Bank of America, you've
Mhm.
got, gosh, the Big 10, the
The
usual.
major ones. What's
Yeah.
also
Wells
interesting too
Fargo, you got the usual suspect,
What's
right?
also really interesting too is obviously with shorting of silver, a lot of that goes back to JP Morgan, Bank of America, all of these big banks. So they really are not for us having control of our money. And it's so obvious at this point. Anytime people try
Right.
and break free, they really try and lure them back in or try and crash the entire system.
To hammer that point home, Bree, it is so important. Think of if we're trying to run an honest weights and measures system, okay, and everything's supposed to be equal. Remember that some people
Mhm.
will say if you had a gold coin 100 years ago, you could buy a hat and a suit and shoes and socks and a belt and a whole outfit and everything. And an ounce of gold then should buy exactly the same thing now.
Yeah,
Really super nice Hugo Boss suit, whatever, shoes, hat, tie, shirt, cufflinks. You should be An ounce should be an ounce should be an ounce. It should be
of course.
stable in value, hence stable
Hmm.
coins, okay? It should be stable in value, but if you're messing with the monetary system and you say inflation of 3% is normal and you're supposed to lose value 3%, where's it going to? Where's that value transferring to if the currency is dropping? And if the currency is dropping, yet people know they need to maintain their purchasing power, and it takes more of these dropped dollars to buy an ounce of silver, and it
Yeah.
drops some more, and they want, now I want more, and it drops some more. Now I want a higher price. Well, the reality of purchasing power being maintained by a coin ounce of silver puts a lie to the inflation and the debasement of the currency. So what do they have to do to keep silver not making the dollar look weak and look pitiful
Mhm.
and look like a failure and look like a theft mechanism that it is? They have to
Yeah.
keep shorting silver and shorting
Yeah.
silver and shorting
It's
silver.
brilliant.
So they bring that silver value down somewhere tangentially at the
Mhm.
same level as the dollar, so
Yeah.
people don't wake up that the dollar is a scam.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was making this point a couple weeks ago of how, you know, I own silver. I know its value, and I for sure know that it's a lot more valuable than what it's priced right now. When you go on the COMEX, what the price of silver, and just like I know you and I both are big believers in XRP, we know XRP is a lot more valuable than what it's listed at right now.
Right.
And it really is crazy though how this entire system has been created to enslave the masses. And I have heard too that the crown has actually also been really involved in the Federal Reserve. Is that true, or have you heard any of these speculations?
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, the Rothschilds are from Europe. I mean, Mayor
Mhm,
Amstel Rothschild had 6 or 7 sons. He trained them all to be bankers. He spread them out around the world. They went to Spain and Italy and the Vatican,
mhm,
England, United States, all over the world to basically become these international bankers. They
mhm.
learned very early on that the greatest way in the world to make money is to lend money to governments and then encourage governments to spend the money. The father, Mayor Amstel Rothschild, that created central banking, one of his most famous quotes is, "I care not who makes a nation's laws, as long as I print the money, as long as I own the
It's very
monetary
telling.
system." Well,
It's very telling.
it's telling because he understood deeply at the core level that men are corruptible and women are corruptible, and they can be
Mhm,
bought, they can be paid for, he can purchase anything. If he can print the money, then name your price. 5,000,000? Done. Now I got you. Once you've made that deal with the devil, or you check the old song, Hotel California, you can check in, but you can never leave.
mhm. Yeah,
Once you've made that deal, now they got you. Next
yeah,
time you wanna have a conscience and say, "I'm not gonna vote for," "Oh, I think you are." You wouldn't want that little secret to come out, would you?
mhm. No,
That
absolutely.
doesn't that sound a little bit like the Jeffrey Epstein model?
Yeah, I heard this quote the other day, and it says, "It's easier to create Bitcoin than it is to reform the Federal Reserve." Have you ever heard this quote before? So obviously, we have been seeing bombshell news with Epstein files being released and certain emails coming to light. And actually, these emails have been out for a while. I've been hearing about Epstein's involvement in Bitcoin for some months, but it seems like it's catching a lot more attention recently. I would love to hear your perspective on this. I know you posted a lot on social media kind of diving into this, but it seems really interesting how most people assumed that Bitcoin was grassroots. And then we saw evidence within these emails that Bitcoin really was hijacked by Epstein, possibly the government. They took control over the core developers, and we see they spent about $850,000 funneled to MIT, and that ended up going towards funding these developers. What are your thoughts on this, and just how, I guess, how important it is for Epstein and the government to have gotten a hold of Bitcoin and to really kind of take advantage of having this huge way of controlling something that's supposed to be decentralized so then people aren't really going against the dollar.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's so fundamental for people to understand this. World reserve currencies have anywhere from a 50 to 80-year lifespan before they die.
Mhm.
They're just terminal. They don't last because they're built on a Ponzi scheme. Okay, the math ends up running out of math. The logic doesn't work anymore. They have to
Yeah.
print and print and print and print, and then all of a sudden you have so much interest on your debt, and then just the debt service alone. Normally, the total 100% pronouncement of death is when the interest on the debt becomes more than the total expenditure of the military, national defense.
Mhm.
Okay? We did that, we crossed that line a long time ago.
Yeah,
Okay?
I was gonna say.
Uh, and so, Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard in 1970. Bretton Woods created the world reserve currency right after
Yeah.
at the end of World
Mhm.
War II. Okay, so that was 1945. So what are we, 26 years later? Nixon takes us off the gold standard. So now we're 1971 and we go to 2008. Now
Mhm.
it's 29, 8, 37 years. The mortgage crisis happened. We had the great financial crisis and the home prices the mortgage rates went to zero. The stock market went like, crazy. Uh, we lose major banks in New York,
Yeah.
the subprime mortgage crisis all over the world because these things were blended in with debts and normal corporate debt all over the world. Markets
Mhm.
crashed. People lost their mind basically. In essence, that was the economy flatlining and dying. Okay. What people don't oftentimes connect is they did this massive bailout. They printed all this money. They made,
Mhm.
Bank of America by Merrill Lynch and, all the other companies had to merge and they just there was nothing was in law. It was just Simon says,
Mhm.
the Federal Reserve says, okay, you're in, you're out. You live, you die. And it was just kind of like reorganization by fiat control because the Federal Reserve was in charge of everything, but their system just crashed. Okay. So we lived through that crisis. I think Citibank stock went down to 99 cents I mean, it was horrible. And, but guess who got elected in 2008? Guess who got sworn into office in January of 2009?
Was Obama then?
President Obama. Guess when the Bitcoin Whitepaper was released?
Yeah.
It's not a coincidence that the old monetary system had died and flatlined. They dropped interest rates to zero. For the 8 years President Obama was in the presidency,
Mhm.
interest rates were pretty much zero. They called it ZIRP, zero interest rate policy. So if you're the president and you want to shake things up and have Middle Eastern wars and Ferguson and BLM and George Floyd and riots and divide and conquer the country and talk about how we're 5 days away from fundamentally changing this joint and, the problem with the Constitution is it's a charter of negative liberties, and we gotta change that, so it's almost like you get married and you go, "I can't wait to get married so I can change that person fundamentally."
That's crazy.
If you wanna change it fundamentally, why are you marrying them? I mean, if they're not what you love, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
But he announces to the world we're 5 days away from getting rid of this racist shithole of a country with a constitution that he didn't like, and he wanted to come and do his magic, and if you look in the rearview mirror, it's very telling how divisive and how destructive and how caustic and how weakening the 8 years of the Obama administration was.
Oh, yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I'm not giving a pass to George H.W. Bush
Yeah,
because
I was
that
gonna say, th
evil
all
he
of
is
them are
an
bad, but he was the worst.
evil asshole. His son is worse. The
Yeah.
Clintons were horrible.
Yeah. But
Obama was the
Obama's
worst.
the winner.
He is the winner, and I
Yeah.
think people will find out that he will be arrested if he's still with us. He will be found to be behind the election
Yeah.
interference, behind the impeachments, behind the
Mhm.
dossier, helping Hillary Clinton, behind the
Yeah.
successful election fraud of 2020, and he was the one speaking into Mr. President Biden's ear with an earpiece during his 4 years. So if people believe that we had a legitimately elected government with legitimate money and a legitimate president and legitimate election, they're going to have a very hard time dealing with the next 5 or 10 or 15
Oh,
years.
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I don't understand how people couldn't be awake at this moment in history. It seems like we're living in a clown show with everything that's going on, and it is so obvious with all the fraud.
Yes, they really do. And Bree, when you get really at the granular level, they even hijack the word dollar. A dollar is not if a dollar is which one are we talking about? The US Treasury dollar, the Federal Reserve note? Because it
Mhm.
says United States on it, but also says Federal Reserve note. So
Yeah.
when they can pervert the language and change the definition of a term, and they say, here's a dollar when in fact it's a non-governmental organization printed out of thin air debt obligation issued by a non-constitutional entity, but they
Mhm.
call it a dollar. We're thinking we got a lot of money, but when you pull this 20 out of your pocket and look at it, it's an IOU from me to the issuer, which is the Federal Reserve. It's
Yeah.
their property.
Yeah.
If people understood the way that they've written the laws, we think we have our money in a checking account. It is their money. They're letting us use it. And if for any reason tomorrow they need to close the doors and say we're taking it back, it was never our money. It's theirs.
I mean, it even feels that way when you think about owning a house. You might own it, it might be fully paid off, but really, do you own it? You have to pay property taxes on that, and if you don't pay those property taxes, what happens? They come and what do they just take your house from you? It feels
Or
like
let's say you
we can
don't
own
do what the
nothing these days.
or let's say you don't do what the HOA tells you that you have to do and paint your mailbox the right color. Next one thing leads to another, and they file a suit on you, and then they file a
Yeah,
lien on you, and then they take your house because you didn't do what the homeowners association said
yeah.
with your mailbox. I mean, it's
So
nuts. It's
So
nuts.
I'm a big believer in contracts and voluntarism, and I could understand if I'm moving into like a private community where I'm signing a contract where I'm, agreeing to paint my house a certain color and my mailbox and keep my lawn mowed. I could kind of see that. I also see from your perspective too, but I understand that. But what I really don't understand is like, when did I give my consent as an American to have to pay property taxes and lose my house because I don't pay those taxes?
You never did.
Yeah, because I
They're
honestly
buried
don't
in a
remember.
legal, and that goes back, Bree, to the idea of mutual consent.
Yeah,
The highest form, the highest moral law in the land is mutual consent, but mutual consent means there cannot be deception, manipulation, omission, uh, altered words,
mhm,
intent that's not fully disclosed. When a person knowingly, if you can knowingly believe that a person has no ability to understand the terms and conditions of a contract and you get them to do it, or if you use force, if
yeah,
you use duress, if you
coercion,
use
yeah,
deception, if you use omission, if you make it so unbelievably complicated, yes, that's my
yeah,
signature, but you told me this and I thought this, but the reality was this.
mhm.
That's not mutual consent.
Yeah, and
That's
I feel that way with taxes. I mean, they make taxes so confusing, it's not like they tell you how much you owe. You're forced to figure it out yourself, and it's totally
under
crazy.
threat of perjury, and if you get
Yeah,
20 different people
go to
reviewing your
prison.
tax return, you're gonna get 20 different numbers.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I do really wanna touch on Bitcoin, though, and Epstein's involvement in Bitcoin.
Sure.
From your perspective, do you believe that Bitcoin was hijacked, or do you believe from the beginning it was created, maybe as a product of the government to kind of seem like they would present some like nice gift to the population, even though the whole time it was just a mechanism of control?
Yes, I do believe it was designed as a mechanism of control. It was marketed as a mechanism of control. These hipsters, these entrepreneurial, libertarian, cool tech guys, came out and they were the Bitcoin, of course, that was mocked and crazy, and it was different than anything
Mhm.
digital money, internet money, but they did the marketing campaign for long enough. That today, if you go and ask anybody, your average person on the street, "Hey, what do you think about crypto?" They'll go, "Oh, I don't do Bitcoin."
Yeah,
No,
they just assume you're talking
I
about
didn't
Bitcoin.
say Bitcoin. I said crypto. There's 40,000 projects. Oh, I don't do Bitcoin. But because the media it's been nothing but Bitcoin and Ethereum, Bitcoin and
Mhm.
Ethereum, Bitcoin and Ethereum for 10 years, right?
Yeah.
And even though there's utility tokens and all kinds of different sorts of projects and all kinds of different technology, digital assets that serve many different purposes.
Yeah, of course.
The media wants you to think Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin,
Yeah.
Bitcoin, Bitcoin. Okay. Couple of problems with that. Number one, they sold Bitcoin to the world as the ultimate payments solution, the
Yeah.
payment token that could do everything for everybody. It would down with the banks. Banks are bad. We all hate banks. Remember, came out on the heels of the great financial crisis.
Yeah, yeah, no middleman,
Now
remove yourself from the
here's
banks.
the money savior that will be honest and pure and transparent and clear, and you can have your own wallet, and we'll stick it to those dastardly banks,
Yeah.
right? And so here comes the marketing campaign. So let's stop right there. If people understood central banking and wealth and money and power and Fortune 500 companies, and that four companies own 95% of all media companies in the world. If you look at the org chart, you've got Disney, and you've got ABC, ESPN, and there's four major corporations that own everything from Fox News to ABC to the internet presses, magazines, newspapers, broadcast news evening programs, Netflix, all of them. Four companies.
Mhm.
Okay. And the banks own the companies. The banks run the money system. The bankers basically own everything through the banking system and
Mhm.
control them. They control your liquidity flows, your credit lines, your capital lines, your ability to, do
Everything.
institutional money flows, all of it, cross-border payments. The bankers run the blood system of the global economy.
Mhm.
Okay. If Bitcoin was the anti-bankers coin, take down the banks and stick it to the man, why would the bankers that own 95% of the media outlets let them come on and advertise a coin that was
Yeah.
gonna destroy the
Well
banks?
okay, so this is from my perspective, I don't think it started off that way. And I have a friend that wrote a really good book. It's called The Hijacking of Bitcoin. I believe
I
it started off as peer-to-peer cash, and it was totally hijacked, whether that was through
agree.
Jeffrey Epstein or the government. I believe they got to about 3 of the 5, developers, and they were able to basically pay them off and take control of the network. But I do believe there's evidence for that with even the block size wars when they wanted to increase block size to be able to make it actually work as, digital cash. It no longer worked that way. And there were a lot of different ways that they came in and kind of took control of the project and really now created something like that's completely against its original ethos. That's just from my perspective, but
I agree,
it's
Bree, I
it's
think
pretty weird.
I love that discussion, and there's an argument that is it started out very pure. It started
Yeah,
out with the best of intentions, that it got hijacked. And there's also an argument that it got hijacked from the hijackers and got turned back around because the Trumps are very popular. They love it. They endorse it. They're allowing the Trump brand name to be associated with Bitcoin
yeah,
and Bitcoin
but
related projects.
it's still not used for peer-to-peer cash like it was
There is
supposed to
the
be
it
using.
has changed its purpose.
Yeah,
It is not going it will never do what they tried to advertise it to the world that it could do
yeah,
because of transaction speed and energy cost, and it's
yeah.
too slow, and it
Well,
doesn't scale. It doesn't
yeah,
do smart contracts. There's
and then
so
even
many thi
and
Go ahead.
even from a mining perspective, it used to be where, you and I on just our normal computers were able to mine Bitcoin, and now it's, you have to have ASICs in order to mine Bitcoin, and we only see these huge mining farms able to actually mine, so it's not decentralized anymore. At least, mining is not decentralized.
And that is critical because the
Yeah,
mining power and the hash power determines who gets to do the votes and the governance on the network. And if there's only 3 or 4 big major miners, then they get all the power and
yeah,
governance, and the governance is not transparent. You can't see how they vote. And so
yeah,
now you can't
exactly.
audit and inspect the 4 companies that are doing the governance on the rail that's supposed to be the payment system that governs the world,
Yeah.
you
No,
know?
that's a really, really good point. And I really do believe that was the intentions behind Bitcoin being hijacked. And I do think also in these emails we have seen that Jeffrey Epstein saw Ripple and XRP as a major threat to what he was doing. And,
Right,
obviously you and I, we have a lot of experience with XRP, and I'm pretty
right.
sure we were invested in XRP before the big SEC lawsuit. So seeing what the XRP community had to go through during that time, it seems evident now that Jeffrey Epstein was involved in possibly leading Gary Gensler to really
Yeah.
create this very, very tough time for XRP and Ripple.
Mhm. Yeah, that is absolutely correct. You look at I believe the estimates are that 75% of the code that has been developed that's in existence today has developed since Jeffrey Epstein has been at the center of Bitcoin. As an
Yeah.
influencer, as a fundraiser, as a networker, doing conferences and working with the Mossad, working with the Roth, as you know, he
Mhm.
said in his email, I work for the Rothschilds as he's reaching
Yeah.
out to people to come to their 2014 conference. I know it's 2013 and it's the conference is 16 months away, but we really want you to come and explore some ideas. And so you have a man that is connected with the MIT Media Labs. You have Joy Ito, who's running the
Mhm.
MIT. You have Reid Hoffman, who runs LinkedIn,
Mhm.
another billionaire. You have the gentleman, Austin Hill, I believe is his name, that
Yeah.
ran Blockstream, that creates the
Yeah.
Lightning Network.
And Adam
Okay.
Back.
And there you go. And so 150 or so people. And again, some people are nefarious. Some people are doing it for money and power. Some people are
Mhm.
completely agnostic and unaware of what's going on.
Oh,
They
of
really
course,
think
of
they're
course.
doing a Puritan project. And so
Yeah.
it doesn't take that many to hijack and or divert the mission or purpose or the control
Yeah.
over an entity. How long has America been under the control of hidden hands with asymmetric power and we haven't known it,
Yeah.
right?
What's pretty crazy too is $850,000 really is not much money to be able to
Mhm.
hijack an entire project. Like that was crazy. When I read that, I'm like, wow, these people really did not ask for much money.
Well, and think about this though, Brew. What if, and again, this is pure speculation, but I just wanted people to open their minds and think a little bit. What if,
Mhm.
in theory, Bitcoin does have a role? A lot of people are involved in it. You don't want to
Mhm.
hurt a lot of people. If there's value between me and you, and I want one, and you want to give me some money for it, then that's called mutual consent. We should be able to trade it back and forth, right? If we're not hurting anyone.
Yeah.
Um, if, in fact, it could be wrapped, operate on the XRPL, and have 3 to 5-second settlement, and you wanna use Bitcoin just like a real world asset, and I know that there are baseball cards out there that are worth 1.2 million.
Mhm.
If there's Model Ts out there and they're collector items and people wanna buy and there's a market for Model Ts, there can be a market for Bitcoin, there can be a market for baseball cards.
I don't know if Bitcoin could recover from this.
You just hit the nail on the head because the essence of money is a trust system. And if the founders are not trustworthy, how do you use a system that everyone knows is based on a
Tainted.
sick person?
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. So, do you think Epstein was aware of XRP's technology, or do you think he just saw it as a threat because there was another digital currency that could possibly get more investments or could like gain more traction?
Well, if you go look at this Epstein email that was just released, uh, Epstein was the recipient from someone telling them Epstein they wanted we find XRP and XLM Stellar to
Yeah,
be against our project, and we, the founders,
interesting.
don't like you holding both. We don't want you owning a horse, betting on on all the horses in the race. It
Yeah.
doesn't look good to our story, to our narrative, and to our purpose, and
Mhm.
therefore they were basically telling him, get rid of your XRP and XLM and only be in Bitcoin, which apparently he did,
Yeah,
right?
or he was, actually gonna remove his investment to Blockstream. I think that was, directed towards Adam Back, if I recall from that email.
Correct. And
Yeah,
so the point of the matter is there was an obvious intent to do it their way, to have one system without competition.
yeah.
That's why the Federal Reserve doesn't want gold as a competition or silver as a competition,
Mhm,
or a President Kennedy that's talking about letting the Treasury do what the Treasury is supposed to do. The Treasury becomes the competition to the Federal Reserve if the Treasury does its function. That's why they
mhm.
had to get rid of Lincoln. That's why they hate Trump. They don't want competition to their
No
fraud
competition.
system.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it was just like those emails, I think, are going to be very detrimental to Bitcoin. I
I
don't
have
really see
I
how it can recover.
I have 2 words for you. Dan Pena.
Oh, yes, I have seen that video.
If you knew who was really behind Bitcoin, really behind Bitcoin, you would run as fast as you fucking could to sell it. I know. 100%. If you knew who owned Bitcoin or who started Bitcoin, you had Bitcoin, you couldn't sleep at night. I know. 100%. And when the real founder of Bitcoin comes out, it is my humble opinion, and there's nothing humble about me, Bitcoin will go to fucking zero.
One day.
In a microsecond, whoop, like that.
For those that don't know, Dan Pena is a very bold, out there, brash, successful billionaire, very outspoken, very successful, runs a leadership category. He's into real world assets, energy, steel, buildings, real estate, tangible assets, but the real economy. And he's been on stage many, 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 many times. He goes, when I know who's behind Bitcoin, and there's not a humble bone in my body,
Yeah.
there's nothing humble about me. But when people find out who's behind it, it's going to go to zero like
Wow.
that.
Wow.
And the commentator next to him goes, yeah, in a day. He goes, no, not in a day, in a nanosecond. And he drops
Wow.
a whole bunch of
Wow.
F-bombs, along his little colorful discussion. Well, in the retrospect, the last 7 days is kind of like making him look sort of
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So on my channel, I talk a lot about privacy coins, and I've seen you've done some postings about Zcash. I do like Zcash. My favorite is probably Zano or Monero, and I think privacy coins are really important because we do need privacy. Just like if I were to hand you cash, we would assume that's a private manner. Um, and I'm thinking that this is going to lead to a rise in privacy coins, just like XRP is very important. We also need transparent blockchains where everything is recorded on a public ledger. But I think a lot of people are going to be moving towards privacy coins in probably the next couple of years. Are you seeing people talking a little bit more about privacy coins in your community?
For me personally, not as much, because maybe it's a second order issue
Okay.
than the first order. The
Yeah.
infrastructure to get everything fixed, and the plumbing fixed, and the rails fixed, and the Clarity Acts fixed, what can and can't be done, and get
Yep.
the engine running. I personally haven't seen, and that opens up a whole new discussion, Bree, and
Yeah, of course.
that is about I believe the singular word that's most important for people to understand about where we're going is the word trustlessness.
Yeah.
And trustlessness is a system that operates where you run into the light, you embrace the laws, you embrace the truth, you let it
Hmm.
all be seen. There's no transparency. There's no asymmetric power imbalances. There's no hidden hands. There's no inflation. There's no debasement. There's no
Yeah.
2 sets of books or 3 sets of books, or the State Department's books, the corporation's books, Hillary's books, and the Treasury's books. I mean, if we're going to have a level playing field, and we're going to have equal weights and measures, and we're going to have accountability, and we want to know where the fentanyl money's going. We wanna know where the human trafficking money's going. We wanna know how AOC went from bartender to $30 million. I mean, privacy coins can be a real hard problem in
But
engineering
you
or
don't believe you would like your entire, bank account history to be shown of
no,
where you're
no,
transacting, how
no,
much money
no,
you have?
accountability and transparency are 2 completely different things, okay? What that means is, no matter what system we're in,
Mhm.
if someone wants to lawfully accuse me of committing a crime, and where were you between this month,
Yeah.
and what was your internet search history, and when did you buy the gun to kill your wife? With a lawful court, you know what I mean? I mean, with a
Yeah, yeah,
lawful
of
court
course.
order, you get to come in and see things. But lacking a lawful court order, I don't want people looking at my
Yeah, not
television,
at all.
where
Yeah.
I go eat or how I travel, or I expect there to be privacy and security, and the government not snooping on me, or the Federal
Yeah.
Reserve not snooping, or Google not snooping on me. I don't want that at all. I want
You
there
would
to be.
be you would be interested in this project called Midnight. You should check that out later
Is that with
because it's
Cardano? Yeah, that's
yeah,
Cardano.
yeah, it's
Yeah, yeah,
really
yeah,
interesting
sure.
'cause it's basically everything you just said. You'll love it.
See, because the thing is, if we can have we have to engineer both. We have to have laws are essential for a civilization or a nation, period. There have to be laws and principles that are universally applied to every person. Okay. And if money is an exchange system between people, but it's disconnected from laws and principles, then you can't enforce the laws and principles on things you can't see or take or be accountable at some level. And at some time,
Mhm.
we all have to be accountable to something or some things or some standards, some capital L laws and principles,
Yeah.
or it's everybody make it up as you go. And we
Yeah, and
can't
thankfully,
there'll be
technology
chaos.
hopefully will be able to, create these decentralized systems that will lead to fairness and, we can possibly get rid of corruption because obviously
Yes.
with everything you've explained in this interview, the amount of corruption is just unbelievable.
The, WikiLeaks founder, talked about when all is said and done, I mean, you talk about getting the bad treatment. I mean, Trump's lived in Disney World compared to what they did to the founder
Oh, yeah.
of
Yeah.
WikiLeaks and how long he was in a prison in a Ecuadorian and, embassy in England, and, I mean, it's insane what they've done to Julian
Or John
Assange.
McAfee.
Or John McAfee as well.
Yeah.
But what he said was it's so brilliant was that when all is said and done and you find out about the corruption in Washington, DC, the corruption is the currency in
Mhm.
politics and government. 98% or more will be found to be so corrupt and so compromised, it will be there won't be anyone left to run the government. It's
Yeah,
that bad. And
absolutely.
so transparency and accountability and laws and standards, without them, look, you have to violate the basic tenet, in God we trust.
Mhm.
You go through and you do a Chat GPT or Grok search and ask how many times in the Bible or in the scriptures in the law book does it say, you know, don't put your trust in men, don't put your trust in systems,
Yeah.
don't trust the created, trust the
Yeah.
creator, right? And
Yeah.
so if we get away from trusting, I don't know where money came from, I don't know anything about it, but I just know I want a bunch of it and I'm going to live my life to get the biggest bank account I can. And that's going to be my, now you're going after something you don't even understand how it came about, who created it, what its purpose is. If you're living to have all the things money can buy, but you don't, it's detached from laws and principles about why we're even here in the first place, sooner or later, people will get to the top of the mountain and they've got all the Lambos and cars and houses and jewelry and success and fame, and they end up jumping off a building because there's nothing there. You know, you can't spoon your Lamborghini at night, or you can't raise a family with 27 Ferraris, and
Yeah.
$12 billion. I mean, that's not what makes this world go round,
Yeah.
right? And it's okay to have nice things, but we
Of
gotta
course,
get
but you
first
can't
things
worship
first,
money. Yeah.
first principles, right? And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
the laws and principles are that why would I Jesus said, "Why would I put my trust in you? I know what's inside you. I know you're fallible. I know you have a weak heart. You can fall short. We all fall short. So why would we place our trust in something that's corruptible, that can be blackmailed, that can be bribed, that can be
Mhm.
tempted, that can have errors, that can make mistakes? Like you just said, $850,000 for the whole big blockchain, Bitcoin network? That's
Yeah, that's
nothing.
crazy. Yeah, it's
You know,
pennies. It's
it's
really, really
pennies.
wild. Yeah.
So the point of the matter is that money is supposed to be a trust, it's a tool. It's just
Mhm.
supposed to be a tool like a rake or a hammer or a fork, right? I mean, the fork doesn't make you overweight, it's you eating too much does. The
Yeah.
gun doesn't kill anybody, you gotta pick it up, it's the hand on the gun and do something evil with it. The
Mhm.
car doesn't kill people unless the driver is an idiot or is drunk and runs over people. So
Yeah.
no thing is good or bad,
Yeah.
but if they create a world where the only way we can get to all the things we're told that we need to have is through a system that they own and control that then catches us, and we don't have the transparency as to who's behind it, who operates it, what are the real rules, where's the asymmetric power, how do they control me through the legal system and the monetary system? Because I think I'm following all the rules, but I really don't know what the rules are. I really don't know who runs the Federal Reserve. I really don't know where the tax code comes from. I just inherited everything through trust and tradition, My mama, my dad, the barber, my preacher, my next door neighbor, everybody's doing it. So I guess, you know, growing up, pulling for the Georgia Bulldogs, getting in the military and going to war and killing some people, it's just the way it is. No, that's not just the way it is. That's the way men designed it,
Yeah. Yeah, and
right?
I love how you talked about also just taking your focus off of God, and the things that are made to be important in society are really just not important at all, and it's really to distract us from having a personal relationship with God. And they have put so many challenges in front of us. Obviously, the living circumstances in today's time to be able to live like a decent life is pretty stressful. To be able to provide for a family, I couldn't imagine being a father these days, having to bear the weight of providing, being able to guide a family, and obviously provide for them financially. It's difficult. So I could see why some people would really lose track, but that's why I think it really is your job, and that's why I really admire you. You have painted this picture so clear, and you've given people alternatives to really be able to focus their time and energy back on God, and you've given them the ability to learn about certain things that they could invest their money in, so that hopefully it would make their life easier. And obviously, they wouldn't worship the money, but it would just be a tool for them to have a better life.
Yeah, and I think the education system's done such a terrible job teaching us. They took civics away. They took social
Yeah.
studies away. They took civics away and called it social studies. And let's talk about how you feel or what's going on in the news instead of what are the principles.
Mhm.
What's the government look like? I mean, we can't look at the book 1984, right?
Yeah.
Or Animal Farm. I mean,
Mhm.
the the worst you're not allowed to speak about morals or values or
Yeah.
faith without it just being so taboo. It's been
Mhm.
washed out of government institutions, it's been washed out of schools, it's been
Mhm.
washed out of Hollywood, it's been washed out of the culture, and you're just not allowed to talk about standards, faith,
Yeah.
God, because they're gonna say, "Well, there's so many different religions." Well, yeah, there are. Maybe it's to divide a why is there 47,000 denominations of Christianity?
Yeah,
D
that is interesting, and s and certain ones teach
denominate.
way
Why would
differently.
you wanna denominate into tribes when you're supposed to be united, but you've
Yeah.
got these diverse 501(c)(3) business models, and everybody's working for the P&L attached to their 501(c)(3)
Mhm.
instead of coming together as a community.
Yeah, and what these big mega churches have done and all of the corruption, it's really, really something. It's very
Well
sad, and it makes a lot of people not want to be Christians because of what goes on in churches.
and the hypocrisy of Christians,
Yeah.
who go out and say one thing with their mouth and they do something completely different. They don't live the life that they say that they do. They
Yeah.
talk a big game and they don't have the faith and actions that match,
No, absolutely,
and
absolutely.
our our problem with that, we were taught think about this. It's so weird. I don't know why my mind works this way, but I look at who were the three assassins of Christ: the bankers, the politicians, and the church people.
Mhm.
I'm, grew up in the 60s and in 70s in high school and college in the 80s. And, you're taught three things polite people don't talk about: religion,
Faith, yeah, money,
money, or politics.
and politics, yeah. Those have
Who
always been my 3 favorite topics.
you don't talk about money, politics, or religion. And those were the three assassins of Jesus Christ.
Mhm.
Religious
That's
people,
a great
the money
point.
chain. So if we talk about it and we compare notes, then you'll figure out what's going on. So they're
Exactly,
gonna
and they don't
they're
want
gonna
you to
make it
do
the
that.
standard now, let's don't talk about those things.
Yeah.
'Cause
Even
we
just
don't
in
want you to figure out the Ponzi scheme and the power truck, the
Yeah.
RICO business model we got going.
Mhm.
Y'all just need to not talk about what we do, just trust us to
Yeah.
do the thing.
And even just what they teach in schools, within economics, I think even in college, like, you seldomly learn about Austrian economics, so
Right.
about saving, about the free market. It's really quite obvious what they're doing.
My people are destroyed for their lack of knowledge. Lack of knowledge is another
Mhm.
word, it's a phrase for ignorance. And so if you want to control people and set up an economic system they don't know anything about, and then don't teach them about it, and then keep them fat, dumb, and happy, or don't even talk about most kids in high school can't graduate high school and can't balance a checkbook. They don't know
Yeah.
anything about, like you said, Austrian economics or guns and butter or supply chains or
Yeah.
you know, s yield curves or, anything having to do with true economics. Do you know
Yeah.
that
Not
and
taught it.
here's an even crazier thing. Do you know that the basic core definition of economics is the study of scarcity? There's only so many limited, they only got so many 15-minute cities. Gotta eat some bugs,
Mhm.
impossible meats. We gotta make those things because, we're running out of land. We're running out of oil. No, we're not. We're not running out of land. We're not running out of oil. We're not running out of gold. We're not running out of
Cost
anything.
and
But
universal basic income.
economics as we have always been taught it is based on the concept of scarcity, and scarcity is a lie.
Wow. Wow. So I do want to ask you another question about Epstein. You did a very interesting deep dive on X the other day, and you talked about, a hypothetical scenario that Epstein would be alive, and rather than working as maybe a lone agent, he was actually an asset for Central Intelligence. And you say how this would have been very beneficial to tons of networks over the past 20 years. Can you kind of break that down for me? Because it was really fascinating, and I actually agree with what you were saying. I think it's very plausible.
Sure. The thesis that I think we all have to wrestle with is, what kind of war are we in right now? Is it an economic war? Is it a financial war?
Spiritual.
Or spiritual war? Is it based on laws and principles and truth and lies? And have we been lied to since the day the doctor whacked us on the behind when we were born?
Yeah.
And if we have been, what is the truth? What are the lies? Who are the main purveyors of the lies? And how do we fix this? Most importantly, how do we get out of this? How do we have an awakening, a renewal? How do we go
Yeah.
from the old and into the new? How do we do a frame off restoration of a false, artificial, debt-based foreign money system and let 195 nations run their own country, have their own money, have their own currency, live in peace, have peace treaties. Common law is really simple. I won't hurt you and you don't hurt me. I won't steal from you and you don't steal from me. And I won't kill you and you don't kill me. Live and let live.
Hmm.
Knock yourself out. Just, you cannot violate those tenets. And
Yeah.
so instead of making war profitable, what if it was more profitable to have peace than war?
Hmm.
What if there was truly abundance and we get rid of this lie that, I gotta go steal your stuff because I don't have enough oil in my land and you got some in yours, or I gotta go to war with the Middle East because I gotta bring my oil down the Strait of Hormuz, and those people have a wrong religion and I hate them, and I don't want my boats coming down by people whose religion. We gotta go to war. You know, what if everybody had plenty of resources and plenty of supply for the short period of time that we're here? Because we're not taking any of it with us. We're
Yeah.
gonna leave everything that's here, right? There's no You're not gonna find any, U-Hauls behind a hearse. We're not taking anything with us, so why don't we just steward what we have? And if we have plenty, then there's no scarcity to go to war over. There's no scarcity to
Mhm.
fight your neighbor over. There's no reason to be terribly depressed because Bree's been more successful and made more money than you have, so I hate her because she's got more than I. Go make your own. There's
Yeah.
plenty to be had.
Yeah.
It's not a limited pie world. You
Yeah.
do you, and your cup will run over 30, 70, 100-fold. It
Yeah.
didn't say unless too many cups are filled up and then that law is in. It doesn't say that.
Yeah.
You know?
People are programmed to live in a scarcity mindset. And you
Yes.
see that obviously within politicians, within governments, within just individuals. Women are so catty with each other because they think that there's not enough room. And I think that that principle really applies to everyone.
Well, if you think about that, if you take it to its logical conclusion, Bree, if we believe in that scarcity is a thing, then you have to have people that will manage those scarce resources judiciously. And so
Mhm.
we invent these angels from government that are just so good they can dance on the head of a pin to fairly and judiciously steal from the rich and give to the poor and spread the peanut butter around very evenly, and everybody's going to get their fair shake, and we're going to vote. And these angels are going to dance on the head of the pin because they're just so, they're public servants, and they want to make sure that the limited resources are allocated properly among all the people equally. Amen. And if you believe that's what's happening, you're probably not even listening to this podcast.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think
You're
that would
probably
be
you
people
you
really
didn't
listening
just hear what
to the
I said.
money.
You
Yeah.
know, so this whole idea of there has to be an intermediary between God and me,
Yeah.
between me and
Yeah.
you know, between a third party broker, a priesthood class, a regulator, a permission slip giver. I have to conditionally burn enough candles, rub enough beads, you know, say enough prayers, tithe enough money. And if I do all of these things and I'm in good standing with the regulator and it lines up with the scripture, then the scriptures will come true.
Mhm.
No,
Yeah.
all of this fat in the middle, all of this corruption, all of this deception, all of this debasement, all of this regulatory muck. Think of it as a carotid artery, right? You
Mhm.
get all of this stuff between point A and point B. What does decentralized ledger technology do? It cleans all of that out in 3 to 5 seconds. Value transfers from me to you, closed, finished, done, ledgered, over. There's
Yeah.
no room for anybody to steal, inflate, debase, cook the books. The books are written on 250 ledgers
Mhm.
around the world. You know, you're in compliance, I'm in compliance. Your assets were not double hypothecated. They were in your account. You weren't a fake Bree, you were a real Bree. The money was compliant in your state and nation. I'm in compliance with my state and nation. Your wallet goes to my wallet on the ledgers, settled, done, over. Perfect accountability to look at an inspectable ledger if in case it's necessary to look at it for adjudication purposes. But when everything is available, where does evil and deception hide and live?
Where?
When you bring everything into the light with that type of trustlessness that doesn't need a Gary Gensler in the middle. It doesn't need a Federal Reserve in the middle. It doesn't need a Jamie Dimon in the middle. It doesn't need your local politician in the middle telling you what. It doesn't need 6 days for it to settle.
Yeah.
It doesn't need a 7% interest rate.
Mhm.
It doesn't need to recirculate this token that means by using the token, you agree to give us 50% of your income because we're from the
Yeah.
government. We're here to help.
Yeah.
You know, it's sovereign tokens with equal weights and measures, freely shared between people in a system that's steward on laws and principles that are trustless, without middlemen and malfeasance and people putting their fat fingers in the cookie jar. Think about this, everybody. If every time Amazon has to pay payroll every 2 weeks around the world in 150 nations, and they have to pay 3% transaction fees to make payroll or wire transfers what does it cost every time you move a dollar from one person to another?
Mhm.
That should be free if
Yeah.
possible, and
Yeah.
that is what XRP does.
Yeah.
It's a translating technology that lets value go from point A to point B at almost next to
Yeah.
zero cost, with no bad actors able to corrupt the mathematical code, the programming,
Mhm.
the compliance, the laws, the government, the identity verification, the wallet to wallet transfer, settling, and ledgering. That all happens in seconds with patented technology.
Mhm.
Jamie Dimon need not apply. The Federal Reserve need not
Yeah.
apply. Wells Fargo politicians nobody's entitled to a piece of anything. If I send you $100 or $100 million from my wallet to yours, Bree, that ought to be
Mhm.
between me and you. If we're
Yeah,
not doing
no
anything
middleman.
wrong, nobody deserves 5% just
Yeah.
because I was transferring money from me to you.
Have have you ever heard of Zebec?
Yes,
Yeah. What I
yes.
think is really interesting with what they're doing, I don't know if you've heard these rumors. So, they're streaming payroll in real time.
Uh-huh.
where yeah, so they're actually gonna be streaming payroll with XLM, and I've been hearing rumors that it's also gonna be they're gonna be using XRP in the near future, and I think that's going to revolutionize the way people are paid at work. Because imagine having more freedom over the hard-earned dollars you're making, to be paid in real time, I think is very cool.
You know what? So why it is so cool? Look, in essence, money is energy. Money is a physical a representation of energy or value or labor or work or talent or IP, something you created, something I created. And then society measures it. And based on the amount of energy and amount of creativity, or whether you build one house or 10,000 houses, you build
Mhm,
a company, you paint a Mona Lisa, there's a value, and society will put a value on something. And so there's a value to your work and your talent, what you do. Um, a mathematical representation of energy and this, which comes from our spirit, it comes from our essence, it comes from our intelligence, it comes from our
mhm,
labor, it comes from our creativity, right? The great creator created co-creators to create creatively. And it takes energy to do all of that, thinking and artist and studies and work and and effort. So if we take it that money is a form of energy, and energy can be
mhm,
fractionalized with quantum computers and trillion calculations per second, and it can be atomized like dust, and it can stream to you. It's
mhm,
just a matter of technology.
of
It's
course.
amazing because 'cause we're embracing the mathematical power of quantum computing, you know,
Yeah,
and massive computing power, but the reason we've been paid twice a month is because it's so damn expensive to move money from point A
yeah,
to point
yeah, of
B. The
course.
plumbing is antiquated, expensive, and dishonest.
Once that plumbing is upgraded, there's gonna be so much more freedom to the everyday person, and then those companies aren't gonna be able to use that money, leverage that money. People are gonna be able to invest, they're gonna be able to pay their bills as times have gotten harder. It's
Can you
gonna be a game
imagine just
changer.
can you imagine the money just flowing in your as long as you're on the clock and you're working by the minute, it's just dripping into your wallet. And then when you clock out, it stops, or, you get paid by the hour. Every hour you're working, you get paid in real you can you could fractionalize this video where people could pay 1/100th of a penny, for every second they're consuming it. When they click off of it, they're not paying anymore, but they agree to it because it's money dust,
Mhm.
right? But you don't have to then sell widgets or avocados or golf clubs, or, you don't
Yeah,
have to do that, because then people are tuning in because of the value that you're bringing in, not because of the golf clubs you're selling.
yeah, that's gonna be the future. As
Right.
a content creator, as people that are sharing, there's so many interesting projects being done right now. Even with the Brave browser. Do you use Brave
Yeah.
ever?
Mhm.
Yeah, I love Brave, and, I follow them pretty closely online, and some of the projects they're gonna be doing with creators, I think, are going to probably utilize that technology you were talking about, because it just makes sense.
It makes perfect sense, and here's the thing too, Bree, what I love about it, the essence of this new infrastructure, this new railing system, this new trust system where there's sound money, there's
Mhm,
verification of people, identities, assets, hypothecation, compliance, settlement, ledgering, all of this is all reducible to math,
mhm,
a mathematical formula, an algorithm, right?
mhm,
Well, we're told in God we trust, right? Man,
mhm,
not so much. Systems, not so much. In God we trust. Well, if God's a creator and he's omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, omniscience, what does that word mean? Omni, science, omniscience. What's the most powerful law of the creator? Math. It's the most perfect math. It's the
mhm,
most precise law. So if the omnipotent creator gave us laws and principles, and the most precise law from God is math, and everything is binary across the railing system, and I either did or did not send you $100, and it's mathematically verifiable because everything from A to Z is transparent, can be put in an algorithm, can be validated, verified, oath,
mhm.
officials can swear to it, attest to it. It could be ledgered on a public ledger. settled, closed, done in
Mhm.
seconds. Well, you can't have a system of trustlessness that runs on mathematics unless you can see all the variables in the mathematical equation.
Mhm.
So, if in fact, this is just a theory, okay? Wink, wink. If we're going to a system of trustlessness where verification and validation and mathematical perfection can be
Mhm.
yes or no, it's yes or no. You're legal, it's your assets, it's your wallet, it's not lent to 3 other people before you're trying to send it to somebody else, it's not triple hypothecated, it's in compliance, it's g it's going from A to B, it's approved, it's compliant, it's transferred, it's ledgered, and it's settled.
Yes. Yes.
Seconds. You have to have a real ID. You have to have an open, transparent ledger. You have to have KYC. Anti-money laundering and know your customer. You have to have a wallet. You have to be able to move things from point to point. You can't go, I think that's Bree. She talks like her. I'm pretty sure that's her wallet. She got 99%, 98. Yeah, I mean, sure. I told my neighbor, I put his name on the Bitcoin and I also gave it to Bree, but don't worry about it's close enough. Let's write close enough truths on the ledger and balance everything because I just don't want you to valid trustlessness means math, not a Gary Gensler, not a Federal Reserve, not a politician, not a banker, gets to determine what happens from A to B. If it's my mutual consent to send you $100 and you want to receive it, and we can do that as perfectly
No.
and purely as possible without any human involvement or malfeasance or illegality or warping or perversion or theft or stealing or making you give up your sovereign rights because you transfer if we can make "In God We Trust" is this far away from "In one of God's we trust," right? So, when you begin to think, if we can all verify with inspectability, is the system working or not? If everybody can verify that the system works as it's designed and governed and we voted on, and it works, then you cut out all the middlemen that are playing games between a world that's supposed to operate on two-party consent.
Mhm. And then
What
there's
hap
interesting ways even for identity, like decentralized identity, because then it's like, okay, with KYC, a lot of that information can be used against the person. Obviously, we even see what's going on with like big exchanges like Coinbase. Coinbase, I think, was also mentioned in the files, if I'm correct, or maybe not Brian Armstrong, but Coinbase was mentioned in the
Right,
files.
right.
Um, so KYC, I feel like is a slippery slope. I understand where you're coming from. I do think though like, our sovereignty is really important, and I think removing the middleman entirely is extremely important, and that's why I would lean more with decentralized identity.
Yeah, it's like zero knowledge proofs.
Mhm.
To your point, Bree, people don't if people understand when we get to crypto proof, we have sovereign identity where machine learning can't find me and find my identity and find my cell phone and find my eating habits and my shopping patterns and what movies I like, my travel history. But like my daughter's at college, and she goes to a bar, let's say, and they go, "Are you 19?" Now she has to give them a driver's license, home address, height, weight, hair
Yeah,
color,
it's
all this
ridiculous. They
kind of stuff.
shouldn't have
It's
all her
ridiculous.
information.
How about if she could just tap the phone and goes, "Green light, 19," and
Yeah, and
that
then through
data, that zero knowledge proof data, is she verified? Yes. Is it
yeah,
private? Yes. All you need to know is, I'm clear to get on the airplane. I'm
mhm,
19 to drink a beer. You know, I'm legal to transfer money to Bree, but
yeah,
nobody has to see anything else other than a
yeah,
yes or no. Then you have that what you said. We have real IDs, we have real validation, we have real
yeah,
sovereignty, but we're not taking a shower in a clear glass naked shower in the middle of
yeah.
the neighborhood where everybody can see what we're
No,
doing.
of course, and I think this is a really important conversation
Mhm.
because, you know, even from your from a father's perspective, I'm sure, you don't want that bouncer knowing your
Bartender,
daughter's address.
doorman, the whatever.
Yeah. I mean,
What what if
that
he
just seems
what
that
if he
seems
writes something
crazy.
down and shows up at her house at 2 o'clock in the morning? I don't want
Yeah.
that,
No,
you know?
absolutely not. So even just for situations like that, but a sure thing for money, it's like, why should I have to give my identity away? I mean, that seems like a pretty important thing, and that's why I'm very careful these days about I won't ever do any facial scans. Even at the airport, I try and
Right,
opt out because I feel like even though I already have a lot of information out there, it's what I do today that's important and what I do tomorrow that's important because I can't control the past. And just
right.
like even from a Christian perspective, no one's perfect. We've all made mistakes in the past. It's up to us day to day, from each day forward to continue to become better and to learn from our mistakes of the past.
Right, and to your point, we all fall short, but just because I used to get hot-headed and temper and I drank too much beers or I cussed like crazy and ju yeah, I used to do that in the back, so you don't go, "Well, I guess I have to give up now. I used to
Yeah.
did it fast. I'm gonna have to just do it the rest of my life." No, we grow. We
Yeah,
get in
exactly.
more, right? We have to go, "Okay, now I realize I'm correcting, I'm growing,
Yeah.
I'm doing better." And just because bad things happen in the past, that's gonna be one of the hardest things with the Great Awakening is flushing out where this new monetary system, this new infrastructure, this new railing system, decentralized ledger technology where we're getting rid of the Rothschilds and we're getting rid of the Federal Reserves and we're getting rid of this top-down, all-seeing eye oligarch control system known as the world reserve currency.
Mhm.
Um, we're basically doing a frame-off restoration while the 747's in air, right? We're
Mhm.
having to fix the engines and reupholster everything and make it look better and brand new and shiny and modern, and it's not a 13 787 anymore, it's gonna be a Tesla 787, and so we're changing the monetary system, how everything works in mid-flight, and look at the markets today, would you? Oh gosh, yeah,
I
125 $1.25 XRP. I mean,
yeah.
anybody? Class,
I I
Yeah,
had I had a friend reach out to me this morning, and he was, like, checking on me. He's like, "Just making sure you're doing okay with how bad the market is," and I said, "Oh, don't worry about me. I'm playing the long run. I know what I hold, you know? I know that the assets I hold will lead to a prosperous future, and the market today is not going to dictate the rest of my life." But I think a lot of people kinda get stuck with the daily market and kind of feeling really down when they see how maybe little, the low price of XRP right now, but I'm like, it's just a good opportunity to buy more.
yeah, yeah, it really is, and, when your audience, if they would look at a post that, I did today, which is what's today, the 5th, um, about where we are right now in this kinda this bloody waters, people can view what's happening right now as blood in the water or confirmation.
Mhm,
It's a time for jubilee because what is happening right now is this is the final shaking. This is the anger. This is if I can't have her, you can't either. The crack-headed, kidnapper, ex-boyfriend the SWAT team shows up and he's got his arm around a gun to her head. If I can't have her, nobody can. Well, the
mhm,
Federal Reserve central banker controllers are like, I'm losing my monetary control system. The monopoly is going away. I don't like it. And they're shaking violently and the system's bleed. They're resisting, like, this is the fear and anger stage, the last gasp of death of the old system. And
yeah.
so you can look at this as, oh my God. And if you don't know what's going on, it absolutely
It
scares.
probably is
If you
scary,
do,
yeah.
if you do know what's going on, it's not fun.
Yeah, I'm like,
But
"We're so close. This is
man,
great."
it is confirmation of what you and I have been studying for 10 years or longer. And the old systems are falling away and the new systems are the railing system. We're this close to the Clarity Act, stable coins. 90 nations are now in a peace agreement instead of the NATO that wants to be in a war alliance. The United Nations that wants to always be I mean, it's it is probably the most historic time in the world to be alive right now, as you've
Mhm,
got a money changing control system changing literally upside down 180 degrees in 195 countries at the same time.
yeah,
And
yeah.
we're
I
alive to be experiencing it.
I
And
do think we have to be really careful with the stable coins though, because that is obviously directly tied to US Treasury bonds and the dollar itself. So it is cool that there are some decentralized stable coins out there, but I feel like stable coins are kind of like the last thing to keep the dollar afloat because you're pumping money from all over the world into these coins, and they're all kind of, I guess, involved in the dollar on a global level.
Well, yes. Consider this, Bree. You're not going to have a centralized issue of any stable coins. And the thing that President Trump has been talking about for 45 or 50 years is market manipulation and currency manipulation, and he hates
Hmm.
it. So why? Because to your point, if you could just create money out of thin air or stable coins out of thin air and there's nothing that backed it, it wasn't sound, you
And
just
censor
create
and block transactions.
yeah, and censor and block transactions. And then country A goes and does a big trade deal with country B. And it's coffee and soybeans and steel and airplanes and computer chip, whatever the deal is, okay? And they sign a deal. Well, obviously, they're signing Toyotas and Boeing jets and corn and cows and whatever they're trading, they're denominated at a certain value. You know, the Chinese silver and microchips and our cows and corn,
Hmm.
okay? If you then a week later devalue your currency and you print 4 trillion new dollars and the currency becomes less in value. Now that deal that you thought was a good deal is all of a sudden not a good deal because the Chinese currency is worthless. You devalued it. You broke the deal. So how do two countries keep each other honest? Maybe the stable coin has to be 100% backed by collateral that's inspectable. The stable coin has to be 1-to-1. There can't be any fractional reserve lending. The stable coin, if they say that it's backed by gold or silver or platinum or
Hmm.
diamonds or oil, whatever those assets are, based on X amount of currency in circulation,
Yeah,
or aren't all these things measurable? Aren't all these things observable by
they
Space
should. They
Force?
should be. They
It
should
should
be.
be. So if we have a stable coin, it allows you to make bilateral agreements, not 1 to 13 and everybody
Yeah.
bilateral agreements based on stable coins, where the most important variable in this to keep the deal what the deal is you're not messing with the currency values.
Yeah, of
So
course.
if there's a stable coin, then by definition, there has to be clarity to prove it's stable in value. You're not
Yeah.
manipulating. You're not making your GDP higher than it is. You're not overprinting your currency. You're not giving away all of your collateral and there's nothing behind it. Who wants to trade a Nancy Pelosi dollar with a gold-backed Brazilian real? I'd probably take the gold-backed real than the
Of
Nancy Pelosi
course.
dollar,
Of
right?
course.
So my point being is if the word stable means honest money backed by collateral, unmanipulated, and it stays stable throughout the duration of that bilateral agreement that two people
Yeah.
made, that's honest business. That's honest trade.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna, your point is exactly correct. Manipulated fake stable coins, or what you're really, I think, saying is central
Centralized.
bank digital currencies.
Yeah.
Okay, a treasury is a treasury, it's not a central bank. The Federal Reserve's a central bank.
Hmm.
The United States Treasury is a sovereign nation's treasury.
Yeah.
And what the liars and the manipulators want us to do is think they're one and the same.
Yeah. And they're definitely
So,
not.
and they're not. So if there aren't going to be if we're going to get rid of the BIS and the
Hmm.
Rothschilds and the Federal Reserve and the central banks, how do you have a central bank digital currency if there's no CB?
Yeah.
You can have an
Yeah.
RLUSD, you can have a
Yeah.
USDT, you can have a
I
dollar.
think I think we still have to be careful, but that's just my opinion.
We
That's just
do,
my
we have to
opinion.
be
Yeah.
careful. We have to verify and inspect everything. We
Yeah.
can
Because
never
another
have
thing
blind
too,
trust.
I'm not a fan of an audit should not be done by the company. An audit needs to be an independent forensic audit. You
It
know,
can be done by
like it would
bot.
make no sense if I'm auditing my own bank account. I'm reporting, oh
Correct.
yes, I have this amount of money. Like, oh, okay, Bree, like cool, you have billions of dollars. Yeah, sure, you know? And that's why like Tether should not be auditing themselves.
Right.
It's
Or
ridiculous.
should the Federal Reserve audit the Federal Reserve?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
Same. You're
totally.
exactly correct. I agree with you
Totally. But I think
1,000%.
I I have so much faith in the future. I think God really is going to change things overnight. It only takes him a matter of seconds to change the course of the life we're living. And I think we are in store for some really, truly beautiful times ahead of us.
I to your point, I agree with you 1,000%, Bree. If you believe in faith that God is, and always will be the same, then God never changed. It's us that walked away. We're getting back in alignment with what has always been.
Hmm.
We are aligning ourselves with laws and principles that have been timeless and immutable and indestructible. We got deceived and walked away and went over here and chased all these shiny objects. Is it God really doing it, or is God doing what God's always done, and we're just coming back in alignment with
Yeah,
what
and
has
we're
always been,
realizing. Yeah,
right? So we
yeah,
it's faith is one thing. Faith is that there is a God and that there are laws and principles, okay? But we have to then take action and exercise. Words
hmm,
without faith are meaningless, right? And
yeah,
so if we have faith, then we have to take the action and get in alignment and let them call us a conspiracy theory or a racist or call me. Use
all the names in the book.
why are we told 365 times more than any command in the law book to fear not? Because those that don't want you to align with truth will use every form of fear imaginable to get you to walk away from truth so they can manipulate you.
Powerful, powerful. Well, where can my audience follow you and support you for all the great work you're doing?
Well, thank you for that. First, they need to make sure they're sharing you and promoting you and supporting you because I
Thank
love your
you.
work. I love your
Thank you.
audience. I love your heart. I love your mind. I love your curiosity. I love the questions that you ask, and I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank me too. Me too. This
I-
is amazing. I'll have to do
it's
it again.
just there's a bazillion rabbit holes you can always go down
Yeah.
with a curious mind, right?
Yes,
um,
absolutely.
um, Cool Show is my website. It's KUWL.show. And then on X is where I live a lot of my life and put my research and my posts and my videos and my content, is KUWLSHOW on X. So, please know I'm not on Telegram, even though there's 7,500 copies of me on Telegram. It ain't me. Don't go there. I'm mainly on my website, Substack, and, Twitter, or X.
Yes, definitely follow Rob. He puts out great work, and your ex always has phenomenal posts. I really enjoy them.
Thank you. That's very, very kind of you to say that.